Alright, what's going on everybody? This week I am playing Darksteel Reactor in Modern. Now, before I begin or get too far in this video, I just want to give a big shout out to Pyromechanical. I was playtesting a couple different versions of this deck. You know, I had I had a this is actually the third version of the deck list that I've made. The first version was all in on the adding charge counters via different permanents to Darksteel Reactor. So that list had like 4 Darksteel Reactors. Obviously Vorel the Hulkblade and Gilda Baron. I've had these two have been in the deck since the beginning, same as Core Tapper, but it just basically was get as many permanents that add charge counters to another permanent as possible and hope that works. The problem with that is that there was absolutely no way I would have a chance in winning because there was no way to interact with our opponent's deck. The second version went a little bit more conservative. That time I had different ways to double the counters, like I put doubling season in there, a little less permanents to put charge counters on stuff, and a little more card draw, a little more different things here and there. I had an ensnaring bridge at one point to stop creatures from attacking us. And that is the version that I played against a user on untapped.in called Pyromechanical. And after our games, we did end up winning one. I mean, that's because he got land screwed or whatever reason, but they basically helped me out exponentially with the with how this deck should be set up, like what kind of cards I should be running. It was actually their idea to splash white for Supreme Verdict and Paths, which I'll get to later. Because really the only thing I was using green for, if I took out doubling season, was Vorel the Hulkblade, because Gilda Baron can be cast for blue mana. So basically, this deck is a white, blue, green deck based around winning with Darksteel Reactor, which is really, really confusing, but alright. Not to explain the deck, I mean, one more shout out to Pyromechanical for helping me make this deck the way it is right now. Okay, so we have only 2 copies of Darksteel Reactor in the deck, and that is because we have 2 Fabricates down here, which allow us to search our library for an artifact, reveal it, and put it in our hand, and shuffle our library. So it's kind of like more copies of Darksteel Reactor, but also gives us the options of searching for other artifacts to help us control the board, like Lux Cannon and Tumble Magnet. So that's why we only have 2 copies. Plus, if we draw another copy of Darksteel Reactor, it's bad, because, I mean, the first one can't be dealt with anyway, so there's really no point in having more than 2 if we only need 1 on the battlefield at any time. Okay, so Core Tapper is a 2 colorless mana, 1/1 artifact creature Myr. It can tap to put a charge counter on an artifact, and I can sacrifice it to put 2 charge counters on an artifact. So this creature is relatively unstable. It's not very, fragile. Fragile is the word I was looking for. He's very fragile. He can't really survive in combat or do anything else besides stand there, but he does have really good synergy with our cards. So, for instance, I could play Darksteel Reactor on turn 4, and if I have Core Tapper on the field, I can tap it to get a counter. So it's basically, I get 2 counters on Darksteel Reactor, and then if they try to kill Core Tapper, I can always sacrifice it in response to put 2 charge counters on something else. So that's why Core Tapper is here. He's not really that good, but every game that I've played, he has really, really good synergy if I play Vorel the Hulkblade. So it's basically I almost win immediately if I have Core Tapper, Vorel, and Darksteel Reactor on the field, because of the tap, add 1 at the end of the turn, tap, add 1 at the upkeep, sack, add 2, copy, so it's basically add 8 for free, and that's not even, I mean, I'll just move on and explain the rest. So Gilda Baron is kind of a weird card. It's a Yuffie, a 1/3 Yuffie for 1 generic and 2 hybrid green green-blue mana. And has this weird activated ability of 2 generic, a green or blue, untap it. For each counter on target permanent, put another one of those counters on that permanent. So this is basically, in combination with Vorel the Hullclade, they're both 3 mana cards, almost the same mana cost. This one, Vorel being a rare, has just got a little bit more toughness. It's also a legendary creature. I'm still running 4 though, because drawing Vorel is almost better than Gilda Baron. But Gilda Baron has a synergy with Tumble Magnet that Vorel does not, even though his ability is 1 mana cheaper. So both of their activated abilities double counters on a permanent, which with Darksteel Reactor, if I have one of these on the field, only needs 10 charge counters on it for me to win the game. So it basically advances our clock by 2. Doubles our clock to winning, because if I get 10 counters on the reactor and double it, then we basically win the game rather than waiting until 20. The problem with Gilda Baron is that it has to untap. So earlier, I was attacking with it and then untapping it in response, but that leaves it open to being destroyed. So Tumble Magnet is a way for us not even to have to attack with it. We can tap Gilda Baron, and then we can double our counters on Darksteel Reactor with that, or we can just go the more controlling route and double our counters on Tumble Magnet again, which is a really neat synergy. Say we have 6 mana and both of them are on the field. We can tap and remove 1. Say this was at 3. We could tap, remove 1, pay 3, untap, double it to 4, tap, remove 1, double it to 6. So we could essentially double the counters on Tumble Magnet if we have enough mana. So those 2 creatures are pretty much the same. That's why I'm not really going to do a separate one for Vorel. But we do have Energy Chamber here, which is a 2 generic artifact. At the beginning of my upkeep, choose 1. Put a +1/+1 counter on target artifact creature, or put a charge counter on target non-artifact creature. So Energy Chamber on the field adds another counter to Darksteel Reactor at our upkeep. It also adds charge counters to Tumble Magnet and Lux Cannon. And if we don't have either one of those, we can add a +1/+1 counter to our core tappers if we have those on the field. Tumble Magnet is a 3 mana artifact which enters the battlefield with 3 charge counters on it, and you can tap and remove a charge counter from it to tap an artifact or creature. This was suggested to me by Pyro Mechanical, because obviously if we are going to be using so many charge counters, we need to put more charge counters on Tumble Magnet. And it can easily tap down an artifact that's a problem, or a creature, so it's more of a control route, and with that Energy Chamber on the battlefield, it's almost like I can free tap something every turn. So that is a really good card to have. In terms of controlling, it works almost better than Ensnaring Bridge, because it works 100% of the time, and it's not situational because this deck doesn't empty its hand like other decks that run it do. So 2 Fabricates. Obviously, we can search for a Darksteel Reactor if we don't have one, or we can search for any other artifact that we might need. Lux Cannon to destroy some problematic permanents. Tumble Magnet to tap down permanents. It's basically an all-around just a good tinker effect, except it doesn't put it on the battlefield and it's a sorcery. Thirst for Knowledge, another card that was suggested to me by Pyro Mechanical. It's a very good draw spell, and since it's a 2 generic, 1 color, or 1 blue, instant speed, draw 3 cards, but then we have to discard 2 unless we discard an artifact card, which most of the time we do have an artifact that is useless, like Core Tapper sometimes is useless, so we can just discard that. Supreme Verdict, this is what we are splashing white for, or running white for. We actually are splashing green in this deck and running white because of the 2 white mana cost here. Supreme Verdict is a 1 generic, 2 white, and 1 blue. It's a rare sorcery, can't be countered, and destroys all creatures. So it really helps for decks that just want to run all over us, because we are a control deck at heart. And it's just a really good card to have. In hindsight, if this deck were to go up against the one that we played last, our Doomgape deck, this card would not even be effective at all, which is funny. Now to go to a card, we have a 2 of Lux Cannon, a 4 generic artifact. It's a mythic. Tap, put a charge counter on it. Tap, remove 3 charge counters from it, and destroy target permanent. Now, this card has a lot of really good synergies with Core Tapper, Vorel the Hullclade, Energy Chamber, Tumble Magnet. So if we can just keep ramping up the charge counters on Lux Cannon, we can keep our opponent's board under control with a lot of single targets, so we don't have to Supreme Verdict away everything. We could just blow up problematic lands. It takes care of any permanents, so Planeswalkers, I had the mind for. I knew that Planeswalkers, our deck really doesn't do much to get rid of them. I mean, all of our creatures, we only have 16 creatures, and they each only have 1 power. So this deck is really bad at fighting other creature decks. So that's why we have Supreme Verdict and Lux Cannon, because it will slow them down a little bit. And 3 Thought Casts, 4 generic, 1 blue, sorcery, affinity for artifacts, so it costs 1 less for each artifact we control, draws 2. This most of the time will just be a divination, so 3 mana sorcery, draw 2, but the other percentage of the time it'll be a better divination, so it'll be like a 2 mana draw 2 or a 1 mana draw 2, and that's really, really good. We have, what do we got? 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 artifacts in our main deck. So, yeah, pretty much most of the time it's just going to be a divination. So that is the main deck non-land cards. As you can see, we still only have 12 rare mythic slots, and I wanna keep sticking to that. We have 4 Vorel, 4 Supreme Verdict, and then 2 Lux Cannon, 2 Darksteel Reactor. I want to keep sticking to that layout because I have always been a kind of against decks that are just, oh, let me just throw together all these rare mythic cards, and then it's just like, well, you're not really thinking about building a deck. You're just, throwing together rares and mythics and winning. And I mean, I'm not against doing that for like you. I mean, no, I shouldn't be a hypocrite about it. If I don't like doing that with paper magic, I shouldn't do that here. So that is why I don't have this. On the other hand, I did explain last time, looking at our mana base, I did explain last time that I wasn't going to follow that rule, except for lands, because playing these cards is more important to me than sticking to that rule for lands. So a lot of these are pretty expensive, and I know I explained this in the last deck tech that I did, but that's basically why. In our main deck, I'll have the limit, but in our sideboard and our lands, I'm not going to be so strict with that rule because it'll just prevent me from playing spells, and that wouldn't be good. So here we have 3 Misty Rainforests, searches for a island or forest, 3 Flooded Strands, and 3 Windswept Heaths. I didn't want to run 4 of each because obviously they can't search for each other, and I don't want to keep paying life since we are a control deck, and I don't want to get run over. So each of these, we have 3 of each fetch for our colors. 2 Hallowed Fountains, 2 Temple Gardens, 2 Breeding Pools. We have each of those to either search with these lands or, or just play untapped or tapped or whatever. The thing is, I don't want to run too many of these because in our last game, we did end up running into a deck that played Blood Moon. And if we run into Blood Moon again, I don't want to keep searching for fetch or for shock lands with our fetch lands, because then we're just not going to get any basics and be screwed over by 1 Blood Moon. Even though Lux Cannon does stop that, it's slower, a lot slower than if we just didn't have the problem in the first place. So 2 Academy Ruins. It's a legendary land. Taps, add colorless, or one generic, 1 blue, tap, put target artifact from your graveyard on the top of our library. That's important if our opponent has removal spells for our artifacts, such as Tumble Magnet or Lux Cannon, or if they somehow mill Darksteel Reactor. That's just insurance that we can actually get it back. And then we have our basic lands, 2 plains, 1 forest, and a bunch of islands, because our deck is primarily blue. And this time I decided to include our sideboard. So, In our sideboard, we have 4 Sun Droplets, which was requested. Sun Droplet and Path to Exile were both recommended by Pyromechanical. Thanks again. And we have, they're 2 generic each. Whenever we're dealt damage, put that many charge counters on it, and then at the beginning of each player's upkeep, we may remove a charge counter from Sun Droplet, and if we do, we can gain 1 life. So, against aggressive decks, which there are a lot of in Modern, Sun Droplet is amazing, especially since we can add charge counters ourselves. Even if, you know, they're playing more of a control game and winning with 1 big threat, we can keep adding charge counters to Sun Droplet and keep gaining 2 life almost every single, or I mean 1 life every turn. So that's a really good card to have. 2 Path to Exiles. If Supreme Verdicts and Lux Cannon weren't enough, we have some Path to Exile removal ourselves. 4 Mana Leaks. I felt Counter Magic would be really helpful in a sideboard, especially if they are based off of 1 creature win kind of deals, or a lot of spells that we might have problems dealing with mainboard. Mana Leak just comes in handy in the early turns of the game, so we can get to casting our Darksteel Reactors. 3 Ratchet Bombs. I picked Ratchet Bomb over some other board clears because Ratchet Bomb destroys any non-land permanents, and it has charge counters, so you can ramp into getting there faster. It's just a really good card to have. It's versatile. We can get it back with repeatedly with our Academy Ruin, so it's just really good. And then I have 2 more Lux Cannons if we're against some really controlly opponents. And I just like Lux Cannon as a card because we can destroy lands with it as well. So that's the deck. I hope that you guys will enjoy this game. I think I will. I was running a lot of test hands with it, and I really enjoyed playing it. So I hope you guys watch the videos, and I will see you in the games. Bye.